Welcome to Three People Like This Interviews with TJ Stone. And now, a man who should be on some sort of fucking watch list, TJ Stone.
Bruno wants to know more about Michael and Be Terrific.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you, Bruno. How you
See
doing?
how I remembered that,
I'm
Bruno?
good, man. Thank
Let's
you.
do it.
Thank
Let's
you. I
hear it.
appreciate that. That was like last week's episode.
That's all right.
This is part two. It's in
Yep.
part one we started talking
Mike,
about
tell us a little bit about you. See, I was trying to say before that Jackie's a connector. Like, I've met so many amazing people, all four of you guys, through Jackie.
I was at Matt's
You
Grill
know?
having lunch or dinner with Steve Grillo, who's an amazing guy, and he invited Michael Arcis. And Michael says, Jackie, I know you from years ago. We've met a bunch of times. You should come out to Secaucus to our place. And his place is amazing, and he does interviews where you actually turn up, you're live on the front page of the website. It's not like you got to go through 19 different things. And he's, I'm not interrupting. I'm just giving him
it's
an
great.
intro. He's an amazing dude, and what him and Adam and Numbnuts over there, I forget his
Rory.
name. Whatever the fuck he is.
Well, let's hear it. Let's hear it. Be
Dressed like he's
terrific.
doing an Arctic expedition
I want to
over
hear.
there.
I want to hear from the horse's mouth.
So we do positive live original programming. We also do on-demand content and 360 content, which we're doing today, and we do 360 in on-demand and live as well. This will be on-demand. The idea is to do positive content, and what that means in my world is that we tell great stories. So whatever we do, we try to have a good story behind it.
This is one of them.
Yeah, I was going to say, what the hell are you doing here then?
No, but I mean, right. So we're not doing Joel Osteen stuff. We're not evangelicalizing or.
You're not keeping people out of the church?
Yeah, poor Joel.
We're not. No, we.
You're
would
not
welcome
opening
people
the doors to
They-
people
they-
who need the
they
refuge?
They open them today.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
You do realize we do retarded rappers on this show. Right?
Listen, the idea is to entertain people, and so that's what we do. So, yeah.
It's all about positivity.
No, but I mean, okay, are you
It's a positive spin on
Hold on a second.
autistic
though.
rapping.
1, 2, 7, 3.
But is it?
Oh, boy.
But
Wait till Jack starts calling Asian people Chinamen. Wait.
but is any of this malicious? That's the question.
No.
Absolutely.
It's just funny.
By all means. It is
Oh, if it's
the
malicious,
definition
then I
of
gotta leave. I'm
maliciousness.
sorry.
No, of course not.
Right, it's not malicious.
Context, it's context.
and it's humor, and that makes people laugh, and it makes people heal. So it's all good.
But you were speaking to the CEO of Google last week, and now you're staring at me. Well, so you might want to rethink some shit that you're doing.
We do a lot of live event coverage too. So
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Pimp Juice Mike is calling. Pimp Juice Mike. That's the guy you're sitting next to.
He's
So
just my friend calling me.
Yeah.
how did you why positive? What was that? You stressed that word positive, right?
So,
why?
the bottom line is this. I started a company years ago called Press Pass. We did behind-the-scenes sports reporting, hung out with athletes, found out who they were as people. It was very successful. Unfortunately, the timing was a little early and the economy collapsed, and, it kind of went away. But when Adam and I looked at what we wanted to do, and we wanted to do something creating content, original programming, what did we like most about Press Pass? Did we want to go back and tell athletes stories? Did we want to do it live? Did we not want to do it live? What do we like? We liked the stories we told the best. It didn't matter if it was with athletes or musicians or entertainers or just some regular guy off the street.
Yep.
When I started to look at the late night shows that we're talking about, the Ed Sullivans and the David Lettermans, well, some of those best moments, the Johnny Carsons, were with regular people. It was all about the stories and what people could do. And then it was all about the fact that we were entertaining people through that and somehow brightening their day. And my grandfather was in World War II, and he had a colostomy bag since the time he was 40, and he had diabetes, and he had Gore-Tex arteries and all this stuff. And if you called him on the phone, it could be his worst day, and he'd answer and say, you'd say, Jerry, how are you? And he'd go, terrific.
No,
and
they had him on a lot of meds.
Yes, good stuff.
Now will you stop?
And,
No, I'm just saying.
But
I'm just saying.
the point is that we so it kind of fell together as far as that goes, and we started out doing live events and doing interviews at live events and shows.
Who would you sell to? The press pass?
When we were doing Press Pass?
Yeah, who was your clients? Like, you would do it and then sell the content?
No, when we did Press Pass, the idea was to create, much to like Be Terrific, is to create an online network, except we were kind of a little too early, right? So
YouTube, that's what I mean. How do you make money at that?
Well, the idea was
team
advertising.
Up with ESPN advertising. And so we had at Press Pass, we had Vitamin Water, Subaru, and New Balance as sponsors. Unfortunately, when the economy collapsed in 2008, every sponsorship dried up. Wow.
Every investor dollar dried up, and
that's pretty ahead of your time, though. 2008.
It was, yeah. We had 22
that's
million
9 years ago.
So we had 22 million
sponsors.
views on our YouTube.
That's
page.
pre-Netflix. I mean, that's like no subscription content. I mean, that's
absolutely. So I actually, the idea for Press Pass, I was at New York One, and I came up with the idea. I was working with a guy named Brian Albert.
What were you doing at New York One?
I was an anchor reporter.
I thought you looked familiar.
With hair, you'd recognize me.
Yeah, you did a story on a friend of mine who chased somebody with a bat. That was way back when.
It was right here by the D train.
Vinny and Vito.
Yeah.
That's no big deal.
It's
right
still
by
a-
the D train.
And they caught him.
He did a hell of a job.
I remember
I'm proud
that
of
one.
him.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was
It's still
Bruno.
it's still a developing story, right?
Do
We'll
you
be
always
back
look
right
for
after
Do you
this.
guys always look for the craziest person in the world to be the witness of what just happened?
At New York One?
At anywhere. Yeah, at New York One. Well, New York One, a lot of it is in
Well,
Brooklyn.
at the news stations, the key is that you want to get whoever you get, and the problem is most people go, no, I don't want to talk to you.
Right.
And the only people you get who want to talk are the crazy people.
the crazy
Yeah.
people, right?
And luckily
And
they have
now-
accents.
I mean, imagine this.
That's what I mean. A lot of them are
TJ,
so.
I'm
imagine
thinking
this.
the guy that did it, I think he got it when it made that, maybe went that
I seen
way.
the guy coming out. He stabbed me in the face.
Some on the beach.
Imagine you walk outside this place and you see a guy get stabbed.
Right.
And a reporter comes
You
and
don't
throws
have
a
to imagine
microphone
Right.
in your. All right. So when you walk out of this place and a guy gets stabbed, and then a reporter from New York One comes and throws a microphone in your face and says, "Hey, what'd you see?"
I said, wasn't my brother-in-law has a bad day. It's my
what-
brother-in-law. No, but you
What
run
do
away.
is
I
you
don't
walk
see
away.
anything. I don't know anything.
Right. You're like,
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know
like,
anything. So
you don't
the
wanna be a
people
part
who
of it.
actually stop and answer that question obviously are mentally ill.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So those are the people you have to interview.
I told my wife Heinz ketchup.
Well,
Heinz.
the crazy part about news, by the way, is you have no idea if that person's. So you show up as a reporter, you're knocking on doors around here.
Yeah,
hey,
did you see anything?
Or
Did you see
or
anything?
how what was Bruno like? And you're like, I never thought he'd be a pedophile. I don't know.
Right.
Wow.
We
Such
gotta
a
try
nice
and change
boy.
that. But but do you love it? Do you love when you get that person who's?
I hated doing news.
Did you really?
No, I
would imagine that.
well,
I
also-
see somebody coming and go, "Oh, this is going to be fun."
Well,
Well,
New
when
York-
you
New
get a
York-
witness that starts spouting off with an accent that's out of their mind, you know you're sitting there saying, "This is gold."
this is gold.
Well, what
That's
I
how
was
I'm
own
thinking of it.
whackback.
What I would do.
He's not in it for the comedy though. He was
No.
a reporter. Well, that's the problem.
I used to sit in the edit room and mock everybody. We'd be editing and I'm
Well, of
doing deck-to-deck
course.
editing, and I'd mock everybody, and that was what kept it fun. I mean, I remember going to
Mocking
funerals.
people.
I remember going to funerals and being in the back with a camera guy, and the camera guy would be like, "Oh, I went to the nude beach this weekend," and there'd be a funeral, people would be crying. We'd be like,
Yeah.
Well, New York One though wasn't New York One like one of the first organizations, if not the first, that did the one-man band thing.
it was one of the first, because before I got to New York One, I did a lot of one-man banding on my own.
That
You
means
mean held
you
the
go and you
camera, the
shoot
microphone,
everything. The
One guy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like in most, in traditional reporting, there would be like the reporter,
Yeah.
who's holding the microphone.
Yeah.
There's a cameraman. There's the
guy in
person,
the
person in the van or whatever.
the guy
But
with
New
the
York
boom
One,
microphone.
Right.
New York
some
One,
guy.
was all about the reporter carried the gear, set up the tripod,
Wow.
flipped the monitor
Oh.
around to see the whole thing.
A broom in his
one-man
hand.
That's
band.
crazy.
There would be
man.
many times. Excuse me for grabbing your camera here, Ian.
How
but
dare
there'd be
you.
many times I'd have a camera like this and a microphone like this, and I'd be
That's
interviewing
insane.
people like that. So yeah, it is insane. It works though, and it's the only way that news works right now financially. So
It's because they're probably why they
Well,
couldn't afford to pay
because
people?
news isn't making money right now.
Yeah.
Oh
that's
my
the
God! Are you
problem.
kidding? With Trump as president, they're not making money.
Okay,
Well, there's
maybe
a
with
lot
Trump
to
as
report
president.
on. I think
Fake news is making money.
Yeah, there you go.
Do you have a favorite? Do you have a couple you remember that have never?
Yeah, actually, I have. So first of all, to answer your question, I like doing feature stories. I did enjoy doing news, but features or breaking news like plane crashes. That was good. But coming to your,
I knew you were a sick son of a bitch.
I am.
Like, you're so positive.
but
right?
like knocking on your door and being like, "So somebody got stabbed here last night," and then I got to listen to your story, and then that. Oh, and by the way, I know Jack, you get this all the time, right? Oh, I know somebody who knows Howard, who knows this, and you're like, "All right, I got this other story." It's like, forget it.
I love how your life is so great that stabbings become boring. Another fucking stabbing.
Yeah.
So that's what happens. But
Right.
go ahead. So you like the features?
So I like doing the features, but one of my favorite stories is
my first story, I was working in a small newsroom on Long Island called LI News Tonight. It's not News 12, but everybody confuses it for that. It actually doesn't exist anymore. But anyway, I was working there. I was begging to go on air. And the news director was like, oh, you got to be an intern, and then you can go on air and all this. And finally, he said, I'm going to give you an opportunity. It was the Friday before Valentine's Day. He said, I'm going to give you a story to go do, and you have to turn it around for tonight's newscast. And it became this ever-increasingly challenging story because when he gave me the story, when the crew comes back, you'll go out with the photographer or the camera operator, and you'll shoot it. And then the window kept closing because their story was running long. And so the story was just a Valentine's easy. You go to a flower shop, you go to a chocolate place. We wind up in Roslyn at Lonnie's. And
what's Lonnie's? Do you guys know what Lonnie's is?
Lonnie's was
Jackie
like,
and Francis
No.
popped
it was
up.
like a lingerie shop for women on Long Island. So we go to
These unromantic fucks have no idea. They know every store except for that one.
Who knew there was a lingerie shop in Roslyn, Francis?
No, I never heard of it. Man.
So we
Music Zoo.
We go to a flower place. We go to a chocolate place. And now we're at this Lonnie's place, and I've got like 10 minutes, and I go, this beautiful woman. I'm like, oh, she works there, and I'm like, I got to interview this chick.
Well, now we got to go, Jackie.
Here we go.
So I said to her, what do you want this Valentine's Day? And she goes, a rock, a really, really big rock. And she's waving her hand. I said, oh, well, that's nice. What are you getting your special someone? Because this was just about the point where you started to be a little sensitive. Maybe she's with a woman. I don't know. So you say, what are you getting your special someone? And she goes, I made him a card on construction paper. And to this day, I had that in the story.
Juxtaposition.
Yes, I want a rock, a really, really big rock. What are you doing for him? I got him a card I made with construction
How
paper.
old were you when you started working there? How do you audition to become a news? How does it work?
So
like, where do you guys come from? Where the fuck do they make you?
I was 19 when I did that, and
19?
19, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Out of
I went to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Oh,
So I
okay.
was in high school. I'll tell you the whole story. I was in high school. I listened to Stern every day because I commuted on the Long Island Railroad, and then I got a car. I lived in the city, and I went out to Long Island for high school because my parents had split up when I was 2, and then when I was like at a certain age, I guess it was like 11 or 12, I moved in with my father, and he was like, I'm not paying for private school in the city, so you can go to PS whatever or go to Long Island. I said, I'll go to Long Island.
wow.
So I'm commuting every day. I'm listening to Stern. And they said, what do you want to do when you grow up? This report you have to do when you're, I guess, a senior in high school. And I'm getting ready to go to college. I have no idea what I want to do. And I'm driving in the car. I'll never forget. It's the day the report's due. And I hear Howard and Jackie and Fred and Robin. And Howard was doing some interview. And I went, this is what I want to do. I want to get paid to talk for a living. This is what I'm good at. The teachers tell me I never shut up. This is it. And just then a Connecticut School of Broadcasting commercial comes on. So I come home. I do the report
that
first
fucking
period.
advertising works, huh?
See?
I do the report first period.
Little did he know there would be no money to be made.
They never included that in.
Oh, no, they told you they'd get
Broadcasting
you a
101.
job and everything. The only job they ever got me was there building desks for them for their new school in Westbury. But anyway, I come home that night and I go, I got the plan, Dad. I'm going to go to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting and I'm going to be a broadcaster. And he says, how are you going to do that? And I said, what do you mean? Write the check and I'll go.
He didn't say terrific?
And
I want to be terrific, Dad.
he said, you're not going there. And I kept bugging him. And he found out that there was an audition process there, which I think was BS, but he believed it. And so he said, if you can pass the audition, if you get in, I'll pay for it. So I went there and I went through this whole like open house and audition. And so you have to audition, which was BS.
Yeah, what is the audition?
You write a check.
You write
Yeah,
it. Yes.
right. Can you sign your name on a check?
How many zeros are in your bank account is the audition?
Yeah, I guess so. But is it like sitting at a desk or is it interviewing somebody?
So they give you a tour of the school, and then they throw you in a radio studio, and they make you cue. Back then, they made me cue records. I had no idea what I was doing. So they're like, okay, cue a record, hit the post, which was basically back then. It was like, I can feel it calling in the air tonight. Hey, that was Phil Collins. This is the 80s on 8, and we're hanging out all day. We've got Billy Joel coming up. You don't want to miss it. And then me, Uptown Girl.
Right, so you got to hit it right
You gotta
before
hit it
he
perfectly.
starts singing.
Like, what? And you got to cue the record, and which they're supposed to teach you. I haven't gotten to that point yet.
The importance
What a
that
profession.
fucking programming directors put on that hitting the post.
Oh.
You got to hit the post. Like they're fucking like it's so serious.
And-
Like if you don't hit the post,
Don't forget the time
we're
and
gonna
temperature.
lose everybody.
How about the call letters? Anyway,
Right,
so
You know if you stepped on the vocal and you
my
missed
God.
the post.
Oh. Like
That's
like,
it.
Like you're gonna be in the car going, You know, I liked that station until they stopped hitting the post. I'll never listen to that post-hitting son of a bitch again.
Well, it's that first word of Uptown Girl you really got to hear.
It's because it's a little before the beat. I remember when I was working at CD 101.
It's a little before the beat. He knew exactly what it was.
When I was working at, hey, it's, you know, being radio
DJ
long enough.
guys, man.
When I was at CD 101, at one point, they said there's no more talking over the records. There's no more hitting the post.
Wow.
I don't know what the fuck to do.
What do you do?
I said play solitaire. Man.
going crazy.
There's
So you're
nothing
just
to
playing
fucking
records
do.
at that
Then you're
point.
pushing buttons at that point.
And then you have to wait for your time to what? To say the weather?
And you said it in what, without a music bed, I guess? Or
No,
you
yeah,
played a
it was
music
all
bed?
dry.
Yeah,
It was all dry.
CD
and then I realized, because that was so much, I mean, that was the only fun of the job, was hitting the post, was
Right.
like working.
Oh, it becomes
Then
a challenge
I
now.
realized later, and now after it, it's like, that was only fun for me. You know, it's like
Most guys
people
hated
don't
it,
want
right?
anybody talking over music. I mean, why do you want that?
It's all the same job. You wait till the laugh's over before you start the next joke.
Yeah, it's
the
basically
same
the
thing.
rhythm of everything.
And what you say is the same thing every time. You
It
know,
is,
it's
right?
kind of it's the radio equivalent of like a sports figure interview. You know, why'd you lose the game? Well, you know, I didn't have my stuff today.
It's so
you know, it's
funny.
like-
I
If they
said
had more runs. If we had more runs, we would have won.
We
But
would've
they had
won.
more runs.
Exactly.
It's so funny that you say that. So I used to cover the Islanders, Mets,
They
and Jets.
scored more runs than us.
No, and I used to cover the Islanders, Mets, and Jets. And at the 3 months in, I started to, as I'd walk down to the tunnel with my camera guy from the press box, I would mock what Peter Laviolette, who was the coach of the Islanders at the time, would say, what the first question would be, and what he would say.
There's 5
and see how-
responses.
yeah. Well, you know, the puck just didn't bounce our way tonight, and you know, Ozzy played good.
Exactly.
And,
The Canadian coach.
yeah, we're both.
He's Canadian.
They're all Canadian. It's hockey.
guy. I love it. That's fucking great.
And so we would do that.
He's
and,
so polite, right?
And then you'd have people who were
It's like
taking
a Jewish
I could-
banker.
yeah,
I mean, what are the odds?
Fucking great.
I mean, I
man.
love Bruce Beck. He's a great guy. But I covered my first Islander playoff game, and I stood next to him, and he's asking me questions, and I'm a hockey guy, so I'm like, well, that was a stupid question. And then I realized, like, I can't do this for the next 45 years of my life.
That's the same people, the same questions every fucking day.
I said, this is not for me. I mean, literally.
Even those post game, like after a guy loses a championship, how you feeling?
Bruce is taking. Here's the thing. I like.
Well, they
taking
scored
notes.
more runs than we did.
I hope we'd win, but we didn't win. It would
How
be
you
great
feeling?
if we won.
Exactly.
Well, you know, it was a great season, and it was a tough loss. It's going to sit with me till next season. We're going to go over the film, and we're going to figure out what we did wrong. We're going to come back next year just as strong.
That's exactly the answer, Mike.
But
That's-
everything's
that's
good.
always
Hey, Eddie, how's the traffic today? A lot of cars out there. A lot of cars out there.
So,
Everybody's not
I
going
just
that
remember-
fast.
We're going to learn from this. We're going to get better. We're going to look back at some of the tape, and we're going to move on. Hey,
Yeah.
look, you know, life. This is a lesson.
That's
in life,
it.
this is a life lesson.
I
We're
mean,
gonna
look
use
at-
it to move on and get better.
Look at
right. Do guys ask those questions just to get the guys get under his skin? Like, you know, it's a douchey question, just to fuck with him a
No,
little
it's
bit?
because what else are you going to talk about?
Well,
what
wouldn't
are you
you
going
love to hear
say?
somebody say, you were a little off tonight? Did you fuck your wife this morning and,
See,
and then you're
I
a little
agree.
bit out of energy?
Or
Did
say to
you?
McGregor,
to get him-
did you jerk off before the fight?
See,
Right.
that would be more
Right.
interesting, because I would, if you want to be real about it, I'd like to know from McGregor what he did wrong, because certainly you trained for months for this fight. You should have the stamina to be able to go. You should get knocked out because you got hit hard.
You're not supposed to jerk off before the
Well, you
fight.
ever hit
Everybody
so hard
knows
you
that.
shit your pants?
He was getting beat up, man.
Yeah.
But
getting
so
beat
to
up.
me,
We've all seen Raging Bull. Come on.
that's the question:
Yeah,
is
he's no
what
Jake
made
LaMotta.
you play better tonight? What made you play? But even still, that gets boring. It's night in and night. I'll tell you the most interesting thing for me. I was a sports fan my whole life. You guys are sports fans. I've seen Jackie at the games, and what happens is you go down there,
Cockfighting
especially
games.
especially these sports where they have long seasons. Not football is really the exception, but all the other sports, baseball, basketball, and hockey, you go in the locker room after the team wins. You've been a fan your whole life. You think they're going to be up, or if they've lost, they're going to be down. Especially with baseball, you couldn't tell a win from a loss
Yeah,
in the locker
baseball's
room. They're
like
just
that,
like,
man.
hey, how's it going?
It's a game.
Yeah,
There's
and if they win,
50,000
they're-
games in a season. Right.
I mean, that's the bottom
It's a
line.
job.
They're going through the motions, and as a reporter, you're going through the motions. It's not very interesting.
At what age did you decide to break away? Is that when you started Be Terrific? When this shit became monotonous?
No, yeah,
when life
I mean,
wasn't terrific.
So
It wasn't terrific.
Yeah.
I mean,
I need to be not monotonous.
basically, when I started, I was putting my content online, and it'd take a dial-up connection 12 years for you to download one clip that I did. But I always put my news stories online, and so you know. I don't know. I did all of this. I went through the trajectory, and I said, "Is this it? I got to figure out something else, right? I can't This can't be it. And then I wound up at a TV station in Jersey as the assistant news director and anchor, and I went from there to New York One. And at New York One, to me, it was a jail sentence. Great place, great people, all that. But literally, as an anchor, which is where they really wanted me, you do 15 minutes of work a day. You come in, you read the leads in the morning, they tape them, then they roll them through a computer. You only get the breaking news. And other than that, before you leave, you do about 15 more minutes. So I was sitting there, I was bored, I was frustrated. And yes, I said, this can't be it. And I came up with the idea for Press Pass. I have the entrepreneurial spirit, and I came up with the idea for Press Pass. And Brian Albert and I decided to do it, and then he disappeared. And I did it on my own. But I think it's just about telling the story differently, about doing something that's more interesting. And I've done stuff like one of the first Press Pass stories, we went to Opelika, Florida. That's a terrible neighborhood. It's like a third world country. And we went there.
Did you take the D train there?
It's exactly how I got there. We had a little bit of a delay.
Jesus.
What is Opelika?
What is Press Pass?
Well, it's a now defunct. It was my first startup. It's a now defunct startup.
It was a media company that it was basically video content.
Right. It was. We did
that he had sponsors for.
Okay. 22 million views on our YouTube page. They weren't even owned by Google when we first started, and we were one of the first YouTube partners. We're actually kind of resurrecting Press Pass as a show for Be Terrific, doing these behind the scenes sports.
But wasn't it about interviewing sports figures?
But it was, but not. But this is what I'm explaining is. So I went to Opelika with Santana Moss and hung out with him and Edgerrin James and did like a mini documentary. That's what all the pieces were like. And so we did these mini documentary pieces, and we showed where he grew up and what he went through and how he was giving back to that community. And it was
great.
Yeah, it was
that's
interesting
cool.
and wonderful.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah, and
So to me, that
they
was
were
bad.
like these mini docs that you would do, and that led to Be Terrific.
And jump to now, his website, they get frightening amounts of tune-ins.
Well, it's
crazy, right?
It's evident. You guys, you're really good at this, man.
Thank you.
You know that the stress, the emphasis on being positive, is that born of how fucking negative and miserable sometimes people can be online? Like, it's easy to be that fucking douchey, angry guy, right?
It is, because that drives me nuts. It really does. It drives me nuts that there are all these people online. So we did this Press Pass story. This is a perfect example. It was the end of The Sopranos, and I came up with this idea. We only really did sports, but I said, hey, we had 4 reporters plus myself, a bunch of editors. I wrote a note to everybody. That ending sucked. Let's make a video of what each one of us think the ending was. And so I did mine. And we posted it to our YouTube page, and the comments that came back were horrific. And I'm happy to joke with. I'm good. We could fuck around.
Right.
We could joke. I could talk about anything, right? But when you're serious, I mean, we had a female reporter, a pretty good-looking young lady, and guys were threatening to rape her.
Yeah, see, guys are fucking insane on
and
the
they
internet.
get so dark and so
And
down.
by the way, I
fast.
only wrote that because I thought she wanted it.
But
Is that comedy, Jack?
The internet has created a culture where it's basically ring and run.
Yes.
You can ring and
That's
run
exactly what it
from
is.
anything
That's exactly what
in
it
your
is.
own pajamas.
Yeah.
In your you can light a bag of dog shit on someone's
Right.
step.
Right.
Without ever leaving your house.
Yes. The
You
problem-
know what I discovered the other day that I didn't
That's
know? On Facebook,
very
I
good way
never
to put
used
it.
Facebook for anything. I finally decided, look, I'm putting out this book. I really should do something. So I put up where my book signings are and said, I got a book coming out. Any questions? Glad to share. I just put that on my thing. And, people, how you doing, Jackie? Glad, people put nice stuff. But some guy wrote something, kind of shitty. So I thought I'll be fun, Jackie, and reply back with something I hope a little bit witty but a little nasty or whatever. And he had it set, so I couldn't reply to him.
Wow.
In other words,
where
is
is this?
there a
On
setting?
what?
on
what?
Facebook.
On Facebook. In
Yeah,
other words, say your mother's a piece of shit, and you write back, no, she isn't. And it won't take your reply. And I'm like,
Dad, stop
now that's
posting on my
lower than
Facebook
low.
line.
Yeah, that's
not
right.
You suck,
Timeline.
you suck, no backs.
That's right.
No backs.
Is that a setting on Facebook, or am I nuts?
There is that setting.
Going-
You suck, no backs.
It's the no backs.
Going back to this Press Pass thing, so I do this thing, and I wear glasses. I'm wearing contacts today, and I whatever you want to say about what I said is fine. So the guy writes, I'll say it. He writes, this one person really got me infuriated, and he wrote, he said, "I'm gonna come on your face, you 4-eyed faggot. You're such a fucking asshole."
Wow.
And And
Mom?
yeah.
Ooh, I got
So
some-
I was
Get the
going to
sense
write.
he didn't like the production.
I got a twitch. Man.
Well, I was going to write back. I'm the fag, and you want to come on my face, okay?
It was come on my Facebook.
Jesus Christ.
And my
You should have wrote
.com.
that, man.
my business partner at the time smartly said, no.
Yeah, you have to try and stay above the fray on that one.
We shut this down, and you don't, and we just don't respond to comments like that, and that's the truth. That's the policy I've maintained. But it's that, and it's also the negative news. There's so much negative news. You turn on the news tonight, all you're going to see, and I feel like everybody's tired of it. So let's give you some positive content.
It's really
that makes
good.
us
No, I
Very
think
smart.
that's a really,
They
really
tried
good
it.
idea.
They tried the positive content. It doesn't sell.
Now
Well,
you
see, this is the issue: is
Yeah.
that with everything being so negative, it's that there's no more like liberal bias or conservative bias. It's all a ratings bias.
Right.
It's whatever we got to
Sure.
do, whatever we got to say,
To sell, right.
to rile it up.
what they teach you asked what they teach in broadcast school and newsrooms is
Right.
you present for the lowest common denominator, which I never believed in.
Really?
Yes.
So
I
that's-
never believed in it. In fact,
So that's
used
more
to
than
get,
an opinion, then, Ian. You've
No,
heard
no,
the
no.
same thing?
No, this is Taibbi wrote this. I mean,
This is
his
fact.
They teach this.
They would tell you, I had memos, I swear, that I would get memos at New York One and other places
See
that
what I
would
mean?
literally say, great report, too highbrow, dumb it down.
Wow.
Didn't they always say the New York Times was written for like a sixth grader?
Eighth grade, I heard. I heard
but-
eighth grade level.
So supposedly the New York Times is an eighth grade
wonder why
level.
I
The
can't
rest
understand
is a
it.
kindergarten level. I will tell you, I think that the New York Times is probably a sixth grade level. Even if it's an eighth grade level, that's still the lowest common denominator. And what you're saying, and I always fought this, I said, what you're saying is that the audience can't learn. You can't teach them. They have to stay there. And I never felt that was right, and I felt it didn't serve everybody.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It's
It
terrible.
doesn't
But
serve everybody.
it's also about how you rile things up. And here, a case in point, the Times did this, and it's under the realm of objective reporting. It's not that it's wrong. Okay, so early on, and I'm no Trump fan. I did not vote for him, but I do feel that in some ways he got a little bit of a raw deal, especially early on. The Times, every time the Times would refer to Trump, they would refer to him as reality star Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Okay. Just putting reality star
Yep.
before his name
It's a slant.
Do you want to?
is factually accurate, and we understand. But that's like every time you say Arnold Schwarzenegger, say bodybuilder, Austrian bodybuilder.
You're first of all, you're 100% right, and second of all, I brought this up to my news director. I don't know, back when President Bush, George W. Bush, was president. 1010 wins, 880, and the New York Times started referring to the president for the first time ever as Mr. Bush. And I actually didn't vote back then. I believed that you, as a reporter, you should be completely unbiased. You shouldn't vote.
Oh, look
I
at
thought
you,
it was
all
so
high morals and everything.
yeah.
That's terrific.
That's
But-
terrific.
But well, Sam Donaldson told me that, and I believed it like an idiot.
Well, it's a good guy to
Wow.
listen to.
Yeah. Well, but it doesn't. You can be unbiased by being a human being and being unbiased.
Sure.
I
But
can
what
be
you're
unbiased.
saying, the point being,
The point
like
is-
it or hate it, he's your fucking president.
Right. So respect the man, respect the office. He's Mr. President or President Bush, not Mr. Bush.
Right.
And the New York Times, 1010 Wins and 880, the two news stations in New York, would constantly refer to him as Mr. Bush, which I found ridiculous. We went back and looked. There was no other president in the history that we could find, and I'm sure it's there somewhere with some like little pedunk
Yep.
paper, that ever reported, no major publication that ever said Mr. Roosevelt or Mr. Kennedy.
Right, the
They all wrote-
parenthetical was not my president. Is
Right,
what they're saying.
Right,
Not my president.
But you don't
Your
get to
president,
choose
not
that.
my president.
You don't get to choose that.
But that's the thing.
It's disrespectful.
See how you saw beyond that?
Yeah.
A lot of people can't
No,
do
of
that.
course,
You know
that-
what I mean?
so that-
No,
by the
but
way,
it would
right?
but it would build the
and it
disrespect
works.
into
And
them.
it works
Exactly.
because subconsciously that's what people are hearing.
Right, and so I noticed the same thing with Trump is that they first of all they
So it's
constantly
Mr.
disrespect
Joke
him.
Man.
The problem with
And
Trump,
joke man, is always two words.
It's President Joke Man.
president.
the problem with Trump is that he's too easy, man. He's too easy. He's too fucking
But that's,
insane.
I almost feel like you
Dude, he
can't.
stares at the eclipse.
So I almost feel like
Unbelievable.
You
The
can't,
fuck, man.
I almost feel like you can't make jokes about him because
You
of
know
that.
what? You
it's
have
too
to,
easy.
though, dude. You have to. It's impossible. Could you imagine if George Carlin was alive right now?
Oh my God.
You know what I mean?
But
Yeah, he'd be clawing on the inside of his coffee.
So what I would challenge,
because they buried him. I can't. I'm sorry. I hate when I do it. I had to do it.
I deserved it for that.
what I would challenge comics to do now is to make the smarter jokes than about President Trump, not to make the easy jokes. And
It's hard. Yeah.
and by the way,
I told you what happened to me. I was jerking off looking at the eclipse and I went blind twice. That's a smart joke.
her name was Eclipse.
There you go.
As a fan of the show, of the Stern Show, specifically the Jackie years, because I to me that's I still listen, but I think that those were the best years.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the jokes would have been smarter. They would have made bits. They would have had fun with it, but it would have been intelligent humor as opposed to just what's the joke today?
Mm-hmm.
What's the next joke I can throw? And I think that that's I know there are some people here who are friends with Artie. Artie's a great guy. I have nothing against him, but to me, what Artie brought was that high school humor where the joke is sitting there, and instead of saying no, I'm not going to say it because it's too easy, I'm going to come out with it. And to me, Jackie was and the whole dynamic. They were the intelligent guys. Artie was the guy who was your buddy in the frat or your buddy in the classroom.
That's what I was going to say. Artie was like one of the fellas, and he brought you in as one of your crew members that you hung out with was in the studio.
And to me,
right?
yeah.
See, I want to
you
just
play
jump in and
softball
say
with.
I never ever listened to this show ever, and never heard it with Artie on it. I only know him as a comic and as a friend, and I love him and respect him. So I'm going to I'm going to cheerfully turn over my card.
No, it was a different
endorse
show.
what you're saying.
It was a different show. He was great. Artie was great on the show.
I'm not right. It was still a great show.
you're
I still
saying
listened.
it was different.
It was different,
definitely
and I'm
different.
not knocking Artie. I'm just saying, and I like Artie. I've met him. I think
And
he's
by
a
the
great
way,
guy.
I was impressed with the way he slipped in and he found his way, and he didn't try to force it at the beginning.
And by the
I think
way,
that was probably one of the hardest things to do.
I like
even
that
though
he-
he's sitting here to sit in Jackie's seat.
I'm still dealing with him calling me smart.
Yeah, right.
But no, what I was going to say is I agree with you, and I think that is a hard thing, and that I like that he didn't try to replicate what Jackie had done.
And he was cool to Jackie, and he was respectful about it.
Clearly, they have a relationship,
man.
right? Which
Yeah,
is
he did it
very
well.
impressive.
He did it with classy.
But
He was
what
really good at
what
it.
I would say is to me that's the difference, and I think.
But I get it.
That if the Jackie era had done that's what you asked, right?
Yep.
The
Yep.
80s, 90s.
Yep.
If that's the era, the jokes would have been intelligent. You would have laughed, and nobody would have said, "Oh, that's over the top," or "That's cheap," or whatever. And that's what I think we need from comics today: is think about what you're writing and what you're saying to make the funny joke. Because I'm still waiting for the funny Trump joke. I haven't heard anything that I went, "Wow, that's funny," and I got to tell Francis, and I got to tell TJ, and I got to call Jackie and tell him I just heard this, because it's so easy to make the quick, cheap joke.
Yep.
That's what everybody's doing.
Well, comedy in general has changed, I think. Jackie obviously knows better
But
than me.
a cheap joke,
and he's told me
a
that.
cheap joke is a redundant expression. If it's not silly and goofy, I mean, it just is by nature.
But for instance, like, would you sit there and make fun of Melania's shoes? Who cares what shoes she wears? I don't care if she's an idiot and wears high heels to a.
But if somebody says it and somebody laughs at it, the connection's been made. Fuck us. Okay, you got to understand that if they're flying below or above or right on your radar, it doesn't matter.
I know what he's saying.
If somebody goes to the opera and they're thoroughly entertained, you have no say in that, but you have no stake in that. The connection's been made and they did it.
I love how much of a fan you are and watching you guys talk. What was it like meeting Jackie? I mean, this is a kid.
Well,
you influenced his life, his trajectory.
It's very true. So wait, I have one more question for Jackie.
Okay, go ahead.
And then,
knock yourself
just
out.
on this topic, Jackie. So you're.
I haven't answered enough.
No. Just one last question.
I'm
This
kidding.
is the Inquisition of.
I'm talking about
Jackie
pussy
Martin.
with Bruno in about a minute.
I'm listening to that.
Don't try to feed off of him because he's like a fucking. he's a child molester. Leave him alone.
Your feeling though was that maybe Howard was starting to go through the divorce with Allison.
No, this was all back timing.
Just in your mind.
No,
though.
nobody knew what happened, because when people said, "I thought you guys were going to be doing more," my honest answer was, so did I. But did I want to get together on Saturdays or after? I didn't want to stay after school and do more.
Right.
So the fact that we were getting away with murder, doing nothing, was fine by me.
Right.
It's like but I didn't have any answers.
And he was probably trying to spend more time with the family at that point. I guess. I don't know.
I really have no idea.
Did you find out about the divorce? Did you know that, like, the way I understand it is he had moved into the city and was kind of living separately for a while before he told the audience. Did you guys know anything?
I don't think that's true. I'll tell you, that's another time where one of my quotes made it into, like international AP, because we had nobody, or at least I didn't, and as far as I know, nobody had any idea whatsoever. The only slight hint that I only realized the hint was in retrospect was Gary used to sometimes come in during commercial, and we'd all be fucking around, and maybe there was an article in the paper or something, but I'm sitting there, Fred's sitting there, and we're in commercial, and he came, hey, I just read that said that, 1 out of every 4 people get divorced. That means somebody in here, who do you think is going to get divorced first? And without even blinking, Howard said, oh, I know. And the way he said it was, I took it like, well, Nancy's going to leave Jackie for sure because he's a loser, or Fred's too crazy for somebody to stay with him. I in no way. But meanwhile, I think he was taking. They were already on their way, and nobody had any idea. And the movie Potluck was playing in Atlantic City, and I was down at a sports bar. It was such a low level at the Atlantic City Film Festival. I was going to be hosting it the next night in a sports bar. A sports, a million TVs.
Yeah.
And and that's where it was. They did it from a VCR. It couldn't have been more low rent. But this is the night before, and we were popular enough at the time that I actually had a baseball cap on, and I was kind of keeping to myself because, this is like whatever it was, was it 2000, 1998, whatever. We were at the height of everything. So, I wanted to sit there and have a drink, but I didn't want to be beleaguered or whatever. So I'm sitting at the bar, and on 85 TVs, Stern announces separations because they waited until after the show on a Friday to make the announcements, so they had the whole weekend. And that was the first inkling. They had announced their separation. I was like, holy fuck. And, luckily, nobody knew who the hell I was because they would have said, you knew this was coming, and I would have to say, I was embarrassed that I didn't know. I had no idea.
When do you call Howard and say, you all right, buddy?
I didn't,
Wait till Monday?
No, it's like it's nobody's business. I wouldn't have feigned to be close enough to have done that, But when we came in Monday, it was like, wow, and then I know who's going to get divorced first. That rang true. So we sat there, and before the mics came on, I wrote a note and put it up, and he did. Of course, he smiled, And when we went on the air, the first thing he said was, all broads, please call. And my friend Burf has that note framed in his TV room. It was great, and that was the lead of a real lot of articles because it was news,
No,
all
it was
broads, please
huge.
call. That's what Howard Stern muttered after they announced the separation. Blah, 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 blah.
Say hi, bro.
Hi. So, any children's jokes?
What did the 0 say to the 8? Nice belt.
So Jackie has a CD of just kids jokes, right?
Yeah, he does.
And he offers it up as merch when he does his show, and people never believe that he could possibly have kids jokes, right, Jackie?
Yeah, that's. I always say it's the funniest thing in my whole act. I say I got kids jokes. I got the yellow CD, and it's knock jokes and elephant jokes and chicken jokes, and then I have the green CD, which is the gross jokes, and it's vomit and puke and farts
boogers.
And poo, and boogers. But none of the CDs have any curse words on them, and there's no sex. They're just the jokes that kids tell, and they're innocent. And I always say this to the audience, this is my fun thing in the whole show. See, every night, I announce my stuff's for sale, and I tell them the whole thing, and then I'll be sitting out there trying to make a few dollars, signing stuff, taking pictures, And some little old lady will come up to me and say, "Are all the jokes on the kids' CDs clean?" And I'll say, "Truth, lady, a couple of times I slipped up and said, 'Cunt, you fucking idiot.'" Which really actually did happen once.
I love it. Ian, how far along are you on the Jackie the Joke Man? What's the name of the documentary? It's a documentary about Jackie, but what's the name of it?
I think it's going to be called The Joke Man.
Yeah, it has to be, right?
It's going to be called
Two
The Joke
words.
Man.
How far along are you?
Let's see. I think we're about.
You got enough for 3 seasons.
I think we're about halfway through shooting. The shooting that I want to do, and this is the kind of doc where, we're just going to have a tremendous amount of material. We're talking to some really, really fun people. Willie Nelson's going to be in the doc.
Oh, wow. Have you done it yet?
Not yet. We got to do it soon.
But he agreed to it.
He agreed to it.
You got to do it soon. You're getting old.
Penn Jillette's going to be in it. Of course, we've already shot Billy West. We've already shot a bunch of people, former Stern Show people. We're reaching out to Artie.
Gilbert.
People, Gilbert. We're getting some material from Jackie's appearance on Gilbert's podcast. But it's not just the Stern Show years. There's we've interviewed like Jackie's longest best friend who's now married to his sister, his niece and nephew. The whole story is we want to understand what makes this guy tick, because I think that the central theme of this and what I think is interesting, that's never really been explored with Jackie, is that everybody in their job reaches a point where they're like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not happy. I'm tired. I'm this. I'm that, or whatever. Things aren't working for me the way the way I want them to be. Yeah. Okay, everybody's entertained that idea,
right?
But Jackie actually did it.
Yeah.
And it's not just about it's not just about what his life is like now. I know him for a long time. He's one of the happiest people I know. And it's not about how much money you're making, how many huge gigs you're getting or not getting, or whatever the hell it is. What I think is interesting is making the decision to be happy with yourself, and I don't want to get all existential on it or anything, but I think that
given what he's been through and the history,
I think that Jackie, people always say, Jack, he left the Stern Show. Do you think that was a mistake? And you know what? I think that for Jackie it wasn't. I really think for Jackie, he made he weighed all the options and determined that given what was going on in his life, and wanting to stop drinking and his what was going on with you and Nancy and everything else that was happening, I think you made a call.
You know what's weird is after writing the book and talking about it endlessly for 16 years now, it's really funny because there is no answer. Because on any given day, you vacillate and vacillate. I didn't decide to leave the show. I decided to roll the dice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if they didn't go for it, I would,
I don't think that's what it is. I think you put a price on your happiness is what you did.
Well,
that's not rolling the dice. That's not saying, hey, let's see if they'll come up with money. I think Jackie looked at the way his life was, what was going on, and how tired he was, and whatever else.
But I said I would take the deal. I changed my mind, said I would take the deal. And if they had called me back, I would have been back.
You mean like a few months later?
Yeah. But it's kind of weird because it's almost having a girlfriend and you seal it off and you know it's too late to call her back and you call her. Yeah, there's so many different swords flying so many different ways. But the bottom line is, I don't have an alarm clock and I live for that.
Well, to me, it's also about, do you let one incident or one decision dictate and determine who you are for the rest of your life?
No, it just determines whether or not you eat.
Look, I think that there are many things that define your life, and people can look back and say, oh, that particular thing was the thing to define my life. But the fact is, we don't really know. Maybe the fact that we missed the bus, and didn't meet the love of our life is the thing that defined our life.
Sure.
We'll never know what those things are. Yep. What I'm interested in is, you're on that show and you've got that gig and you make a decision based on what's going on in your life and in your head to leave, and you actually do it.
Yeah.
What goes on? what goes on in your head to, and how are you wired as a person
How do
to make
the
those
people
decisions?
around you affect that decision? Do the people around you affect that decision much, or is this that
No,
too much?
I'm too
too much
stubborn
to-
and
to
weird.
hash-
You know,
to
it's
hash it out.
I have never come to any kind of. There was so many things that entered into the whole thing, and I've never determined what was 5%, what was 30%, what was 90%, what was what. All I knew was I wasn't happy, and I knew something had to change. It was a log jam, and if I didn't, pull out the bottom log, there was no way I was going to get divorced. There was no way I was going to quit drinking and all that shit, and I just wrote. But like every son of a bitch, I have my price. It's how much you want to pay me? I'll suffer. You know what I mean? Who knows what would have happened? Who knows? But you'll never know. But there's so many things. My favorite silly joke is, of course, people, and this had nothing to do with leaving the show. People like, especially a lot of comics thought, Jackie was so lucky. And the truth of it is, was I lucky? Yeah, but only because I had worked so fucking hard. If I hadn't have sent out 400
You
albums,
made your luck, though.
if I didn't get the albums to him, whatever, they're making fun of me the whole time I'm making albums, but,
Yep.
But people say, all right, you got really lucky. That's great, but what if you hadn't met Howard Stern?
Mm-hmm.
And I say, well, there's a famous story where somebody said to Hillary Clinton, they said, you're doing pretty well and you got a great life, but you're married to the President of the United States. What if you had married a gas station attendant? And you know what she said?
What?
Then he'd be president.
Yep.
No, I'm lucky I ran to Howard Stern, but I will stand by my guns and say he's also a little bit lucky he ran into me.
Without question.
Not even a little bit. Look,
But
you know
that's
what?
so pompous to say that.
No, it's
but,
not.
I don't believe it
You
is.
can give yourself a little credit. You can allow yourself that success.
No,
That's
but
fine.
you know what? There was a chemistry in that studio. There was a chemistry. I mean, you get a lot of shit for saying you were the Beatles of radio, but you were. And, look.
All four Beatles, He was, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if I'm Howard and I have my price or whatever, I mean, I don't know that this is an interesting thing that a lot of people don't usually talk about. They usually focus on Jackie leaving, but let's focus for a second on
I
Howard.
do it all the time.
Let's focus for a second on
He could have
Howard's
flipped the
decision.
switch. He could have just said, all right, give it to him. Let's go.
On Howard's,
Yeah.
if I'm Howard in that kind of situation, and look, we're all wired differently.
fucking
I don't
absolutely. I know exactly what you're
double
gonna
guess
say,
what
and
he's
you're
saying.
right. Absolutely.
But if I'm in that position and I know that I got the Beatles here, I know whatever we have, it's working, and there's $200 million being billed or whatever the hell it was. I don't know that I have the balls, frankly, to take a shot at breaking that up for $50,000 or whatever it was
it's a power
that they
move.
were a
It's
part.
the real killer to the whole thing.
I personally wouldn't have done
Yeah,
it.
I
I
think
think it would have
it's
been
ego, man.
But what happened was that the Beatles, if you want to call them that, the Beatles of radio, worked the show to a place where basically anyone could be replaced.
But I'll tell you something. That's
a good
that
point.
But it wasn't. It wasn't and hasn't been the same show since. And I think Jackie does. He wants to be humble, but he doesn't realize that he is lucky that Howard listened to that tape. That's what, or that record. That's what he's lucky about. That it got through. But it's because I believe you create your own destiny.
Yeah.
It's lucky that it got through because there could have been 12 things that stopped it. The mailman could have sent it to the wrong place. The postage could have been wrong. Who knows? Whatever. The person in the mailroom could have stopped it. So it's lucky that it got through, but he's not lucky in any other way because Howard recognized talent. And the truth is,
Howard always recognized talent. He was amazing at that.
And what Jackie said is true. Howard is lucky he found Jackie too, and Fred, and Robin, and Gary, because without that, the show wouldn't have been the same.
But let me tell you, you say that, all right, you got a successful show and it's really working, and you wouldn't have thrown that away. And
I said, I don't know.
But aside from all that, what makes it a real Sophie's choice in my head was for 15, I don't know how talented I am or how funny I am, but one thing I do know is I'm fun.
Yep.
And for 15 years, I was sitting there, and he said it time and time again. Every morning was fun, and he knew it was going to be fun with me sitting there. It was fucking fun. And forget money, forget ratings, forget anything. For him to say to himself, I don't really need him there. When it was that much more fun for him with me there, I don't know how you make that call unless I was a lot less fun than I thought.
Look, it's also possible that Howard really had nothing to do with it, and it was mostly Don. We'll never know.
No, listen, I think it's just like it was a confluence of events for you, it was a confluence of events for him. And I
One
think
thing,
it was the wrong time for him to make that decision.
Right, wrong, money, stupidity, comedians, Jewish, money, whatever it is. How fucking crazy is it that it's 16 years later and we're debating it like it was yesterday? And I'm not the one that brings it up. It's usually not me that brings it up.
But this is where,
which makes it, that's kind of a,
it's fucking
that
amazing.
Itself is a phenomenon.
It's incredible.
It's
incredible.
Yeah. I don't know of anybody. I mean, there may be some people that say, oh, I like Artie, or I like, what the show is right now.
There's a lot of people that love the show much better with him. Trust me. I hear from them. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for quitting.
Same guy that wants to come on his glasses?
Yes.
I have video of it.
Yeah.
Well, it's possible.
And I'll tell my dad to stop sending those emails.
Right? No, I mean, but I was just saying that I don't know of anybody who I personally have not heard anybody who was relieved you left the show. Look, I understand there may be some personality things that were going on.
I have definitely got messages and tweets and emails from people saying that's the best thing that ever happened to the show was the day you left. And I
don't want to make you feel bad, Jackie, and cut you off, but you made the worst decision in the history of show business.
Me and Julius LaRosa?
Yes.
I would say the worst move ever is Pete Best, and you brought up the Beatles. He's the fifth Beatle, right? So
no, Pete Best. That was not.
And things of that
he
nature.
didn't say, "Fellas, I think I'm going to move on."
Well, that's true. They said sorry.
I thought he couldn't make a gig, right? And they brought Ringo in, or
he
was that the Lou Gehrig thing?
I don't know.
No, George Martin said you got to get somebody.
Just to bring it back for a second, man.
Yeah.
I have to believe that Howard regrets that, man. There's nothing you could tell me that he couldn't keep him or anybody. He fucking says what goes on that show.
No, you know what it is? Do you remember the story about Frank Sinatra saving Shecky Green's life?
No.
Yeah, everybody says that Frank Sinatra saved Shecky Green's life because his guys were beating the living shit out of Shecky, and Frank said, "That's enough."
So he saved his life. Right. He's the one having him beaten to death anyway.
Look, I think
if Howard had said, "Tom, call Jackie," it was that simple.
Without question.
For sure. I mean, but obviously there were some other issues that were going on, and who knows what they were. But when you talk
in his head,
in Howard's head, and I don't know. And look, I own a business. I run a business. I respect him for making whatever decisions he needs to make.
Oh, sure.
But here's the one thing I will say is that Jackie didn't do anything in the negotiation that Howard doesn't do for himself. I mean, he's trying to get the most amount of money for the work and work the least amount of time.
Is it
or make the conditions as favorable as they possibly can?
It's negotiating.
It's all negotiation.
No, but but that isn't even true. Because I never said I would like to have some time off or have more billing. This was only about a few more dollars.
Yeah.
There was nothing. There was nothing besides that.
And more specifically, it was more about a share, right? It was more about.
Well, that was never going to happen. So it just came down to dollars and cents.
Okay.
Is it possible that Howard literally just put a line in the sand? This is my line.
I'm sure that's what he did.
From a business standpoint, he put on his business hat.
Well, this is the part that I have a really hard time.
He might have, but it makes no decision. It's like you saying, you know what? I'll pay $1 for a candy bar, but I'm not going to pay $1.05.
Yeah, that's the part that doesn't make sense to me. I don't know.
It was negligible.
He had way more to lose if, having Jackie not come back.
Like you said about having
if the show imploded, if he came in on that day and they all looked at each other and he took a calculated risk.
He did.
But I think, and like I said, he's well within his rights to make that. I don't second guess him, but.
One thing they said is that, Jackie thought he was going to walk out and the show would go in the toilet, and that was never in my mind, and I never thought there was a chance of that happening. I would just ask him for more money, and if I got my money, I'd be willing to be that tired, and then I even reneged on that, but it was never out. I wasn't out to hurt the show. Did I think the show was better with me there? Probably, but what do? You're negotiating. If a baseball player stays out because he wants to get his contract. He's not trying to hurt the team. He's trying to get his contract.
Right.
You know, it's not
So
like,
that's
oh,
why
I'm trying to weaken the team. It's like
That's why there had to be other issues. I don't think it was a money issue. If it was a money issue, Howard's a really pragmatic guy.
Right.
I think if it was just a money issue, he would have cut the check.
Well, and as you said, I mean, it was a huge risk. I believe that. You had to have big balls to be in Howard's seat, to have the show work, the Beatles, you would call them the Beatles of radio, and to go, you know what, we'll let them walk. I was shocked by it, but I always thought it was just sheerly a business decision. This was the line in the sand. That's over the line. This isn't. And from Jackie's standpoint, he needed that number to be happy.
I never thought it was a business thing on his end. I think he had so much more money than anybody even knew that, you know, maybe something to do with the new wife, the new life. Who knows?
Let's put it in context here, okay? So at the time, in 2001, or late 2000, I think a live read on the Stern Show, I think was something like $15,000.
Yeah, it's about right.
Something like that for a live read.
Yeah.
And I think Jackie and Howard, when the whole thing fell apart, were only $50,000 apart. So we're talking about Howard reading three commercials.
That's what people have bandied about, and that's not true. So,
okay, so even if it's $200,000 apart, it's 10 live reads.
It was about power.
So that's why I'm saying I don't think it was a money issue.
It was ego and power. It was controlling his.
It was
this
not
is
about
my
money.
show. I call the shots. You're not gonna.
Yeah, you
I'm
don't
not gonna
tell
get
me.
Pushed around.
That's what
I
tail
think.
doesn't wag
What
the
do you
dog.
think, Francis?
Yep, that's exactly what it was.
Yep, that's what I think it was.
But
That's
you
a
know,
shame.
bringing things back to the doc. The end of the day is here's this guy who laughs every single day, who gets up, who swims naked in Long Island Sound, has a great girlfriend, has a million friends. Is part of a zillion different worlds,
right?
And every day is a new adventure for
life
this
is
guy,
good, definitely.
So this is a guy that I don't know that he has the happy life that he has right now if he stays.
No, I would agree with that. I actually was going to ask a question about that before when Jackie said, I would have stayed for the money, but it wouldn't necessarily have meant he would have been happy. That was his.
No way at all.
But I do think you also brought up an interesting point that I had never thought about before, and I'm running it in my head the last few minutes, and I actually think this is a really good point. You said that the show was really fun, that Howard had a good time when you were there and all that. I think since Jackie has left, and somebody correct me if you think I'm wrong, I think that it doesn't sound like the crew, from the crew standpoint, and they do a lot more shtick with the crew now than ever, I think. It doesn't sound like the crew is having as much fun as they did during those years. Now,
no, it doesn't. It doesn't sound like that. They're not. It's a different show.
Right.
It's a machine.
Look,
right.
And frankly, it had to evolve.
It evolved.
You can't.
That's one of the things of all the things with hey and all that. Oh, Chetty and all
Yeah,
that
it was
shit.
all
One
off the
of the
cuff
most
type of shit, yeah.
most quoted things that they most often said was, "It's fun."
Yeah.
That was what Fred was always and Howard always said. It's fun. Come on, we're having fun.
Yeah, it definitely has changed. It's evolved. It's a different show. There's no doubt about it. I listened to it. It's still great. It's a great show.
So
Look,
it's not
you
the
can't
same
keep
show, but
anything
you
exactly
shouldn't
the
expect
same.
it to be the same
And,
show.
and Howard's 63 now. I mean,
it's different.
It's not gonna,
and it has to be different,
Yeah, of
and
course.
the time is different. The time period in our culture and everything. Is there any part of you that hurts when and if you've probably heard this, I know you don't listen, but you've probably heard this from other people, that there have been times where Robin or Fred have kind of insinuated, not all out said it, but insinuated that they felt that you abandoned them, that the fourth Beatle kind of just left. Is there?
Number one, I've heard that, which is absolutely, to me, it's so patently absurd for them to say that. Like, it's actually being mad at me for standing up for myself. It's my life. If I decide to move to California, I'm not abandoning my neighbors. It's my life. If I ask for more money, it's not like a fuck you to Fred or to Robin. And, I don't know if they negotiate for more money or whatever, ask for it. I wasn't out to hurt the show. I was out to get what I thought I deserved. And it's that simple. And I know that I've heard so much from people about, I never know what's true and what isn't true about, them saying, don't bring that guy back, and Robin saying, if you bring him back, I'm leaving, and things like that. And I even said it in my book. It's like, Of course they don't want me back. Because their vacation started the day I walked out that door. There's no more Fred's a Martian. There's no more Pompous Robin. There's no more Gary's big fat ass. They're on vacation since the day I walked out that door.
You stopped riding them.
That was also that was a lot of the sand and the gears that made it fun.
Right.
You know, if we're standing there and Gary's talking to Howard and we're about to go back on the air and he's walking out the door, all I had to say was, look at the size of that ass. And we were off to the races for 15 minutes, you know, and we did I did such stupid stuff where people would never stoop that low that made it fun. You know, one of the things, all the shit's in my book I shouldn't be talking about. JackieTheJokeman.com, order a book. Was
The Joke Man Bow to Stern.
I would go to the
on sale
to
soon.
the lowest common denominator. Talk about bad comedy.
Pre-order.
And one day,
Pre-order, yes.
The last year or two before I left, it was pretty late in the game where we were so carved in stone. You know, Robin was Robin. You know, we were all who we were, so well defined. Even though maybe I wasn't.
No, but that was the character. That
right.
was your character.
And it was the day after Halloween, and I just wrote a note, and I put it up, and Howard looked over and said, "Fred, take off the mask," which is the kid's day after Halloween joke forever, and I roared, and of course they laughed at me laughing, and he got pissed. Okay, the
Fred
next
did.
day I put the note up again. Fred, take off the and I laughed, and I put it up.
It's
A
so
week
stupid.
later, I put it up again, and of course, each time Fred got a little madder, and I laughed a little harder, and it was so fucking childish. But what a payoff for somebody that listened all the time.
kidding me? Forget it.
You know,
It's
like,
great.
It's like a running joke that's barely a joke, but fun. You know, and nobody's gonna say, "Fred, take off the mask now."
I know.
You know, it's.
You think they could
And
have
I'm sure
existed?
there's people who say, "Oh, it's a lot better show without that kind of crap." But that kind of crap was the show.
That was funny, man.
Jackie, did it ever occur to you? I'd never even thought to ask you this before, but did it ever occur to you to just keep showing up while you were, even though the contract was expired, and like
That's their knock, by the way, that he should have, at least from Robin that I've heard, is that he should have kept showing up.
Hold on.
But I don't think that's how you negotiate.
No, that's the whole patently untrue thing that I'm glad the book is coming out, because it had happened 2 times before where we hadn't come to terms, and I had said, "Tom, listen, if we're not going to come to terms, you know, I'm not going to come in on Monday, okay? Okay, make sure Howard knows, okay? I'm not coming Monday, okay? Here's Monday. Where's Jackie, Robin? Why isn't he here?" He just... So all the listeners thought that I just didn't show up, which didn't happen twice. The last time, and Robin was barely getting over being mad from me abandoning him last time, which I hadn't done. And this time, Howard hadn't signed his contract as of December 14th. The contract was up December 31st. It was our last 2 days on the air. He finally, everybody thought he was off the air, that he wasn't going to come to terms. It was like it made no sense for anybody to negotiate, which isn't anybody, because because Fred and
if
Robin,
he doesn't have a deal, then nobody has a deal.
Fred and Robin
Right.
don't have deals, and the other guys are all for K-Rock. So nobody has a negotiation to do except me, and there's no reason for me to negotiate if Howard's not going to be working there. And 2 days before we go, he pulls me into the side and he says, "Hey, it looks like I'm going to come to terms with Mel, so go ahead and negotiate your deal." So I try to talk to Tom, and of course we're loggerheads right away. And he had been very ill, and I think the world knows that, but who knows? He had a big bout with cancer, and who knows? I don't even know this day if he's still alive. He was a friend. And he was supposed to go to Paris. And I said, "Look, Tom, go to Paris and have your vacation and don't even think about this, and we'll deal with it when you get back." And I was being a good guy. I don't care if anybody says anything. That's how I roll, and that is the absolute fucking God's honest truth.
I totally believe that.
He came back, and I had no contract, and I did work without a contract up until March 4th. over 2 months, I was working without a contract. The premise being if the contract gets signed, I'm going to get the raise retroactively. And we did a little back and forth. And then for almost 2 months, there was no communication. They never sent an email or a fax or a phone call to counter the last offer. And after 2 months, and Tom was like, if you don't sign pretty soon, the retroactive pay might not happen. I'm like,
What?
Fuck you. So after all this time, Larry said, listen, you just got to tell him that, you're not going to come in. So talk about working. I was working without a contract for over 2 months. And we had a meeting with Tom, and Larry said, listen, Tom, we're at a complete logjam here, and you're not budging, and we're not budging. I'm just telling Jackie not to come in Monday. And I said, make sure Howard knows. Like, I'll make sure Howard knows, blah, blah, blah. So Monday I didn't show up. Where's Jackie, Robin? He stood you up again. So 20 million people think that I just said, fuck you to the Stern Show and stayed home. And I'm talking about trying to put toothpaste back in a tube. That is the absolute true story. And I don't even know if she knows that that's the truth.
So you worked 2 months without a fucking contract.
I was getting paid.
But without a contract.
Without a contract.
Right. So he was getting paid on his old contract as if, and if he had made a new deal for more money.
That's never said on the show. You know.
No,
of course I know that. That's why I'm fascinated.
And I couldn't have done it more honorably. I absolutely do. But at some point, if you're a baseball player, that's the only analogy. If you don't have a contract, you just don't go to spring training.
Right.
You just don't go until you have a deal. I mean, it wasn't playing hardball. I came in. I think at some point, I even said, "Hey, if you want me to train someone," no, Benji was already there. Maybe that was the time before. The time before that, hey, if you want me to, I couldn't have been nicer about it. There was no animosity. I just thought I deserved more money, and I really did, and I still believe that. So it's odd, and there's the whole gamut. Between 1 and 100, there's every opinion. You're an asshole. You ripped off Howard. You're lying. You don't care about the show. How could they treat you like you don't? How could they do that to you? How could you do that? Everybody has an opinion. But now people at least that read the book or hear this, they have the tools to make some kind of having an educated opinion. Well, you're still an asshole for leaving. All right, I'll buy that all day.
Listen, read the book.
But I'm not an asshole for leaving them high and dry because that didn't happen.
I would agree with you. I don't think that you're a jerk for leaving the show. It didn't work out in a negotiation. That's it. I mean, I don't think Howard's look. We could sit here and argue whether he should have.
But that is fucking low to give them the impression.
No, that is
that I had done that. That's
absolutely that's not right. What I was going to say is that Howard, whether we argue whether it's right or wrong that he should have reached into his pocket for a couple more dollars or not, that's still their prerogative. And
absolutely, it's his choice.
And he's not. Show. And he's not a jerk for not doing it.
Absolutely.
Just like Jackie's not a jerk for saying, "Well, I'm not taking what's 100%. On the table."
Yep.
I don't have a problem with any of that. I never did. And I never thought you abandoned them. I always felt it was a business decision, but I could understand how, as it was painted, people would believe that. But I'm glad that you clarified that. And I think that there are a lot of fans who feel that way, and I'm glad that you get a chance to say that.
And I know I have heard that, I mean, Fred never said it to me, and, I've seen him here and there, and we went to lunch and blah, blah, blah. But I have heard that he thought that I kind of abandoned the group, and it's like, no.
Have you ever spoken to him afterwards?
No, we went to lunch, but, you don't want to dredge everything up.
It's odd that there's no communication. You spoke with Robin recently, right?
I went to lunch with her.
She called you out of the blue?
Supposedly she was going through a whole thing, and she was settling up. Supposedly she was going back with anybody that she had any animosity with or whatever. But the bottom line was she was trying to get me to take that course.
The Landmark Forum.
Yeah.
What's the Landmark Forum?
It's est.
Yeah.
No,
it's something that she did that got her life together.
It's what Be Terrific isn't. It's like a whole evangelical movement. It's basically a self-help kind of Tony Robbins kind of.
Oh,
but it's no harm, no foul.
It does a lot of it does a lot of good for a lot of people.
That's not a show. That's not Jackie at that thing is not a show.
If it works,
that's
for you,
a show.
If it works for you,
you should go.
Absolutely.
You should follow him around with the camera and let him go through the whole process.
And I made sure I paid for lunch.
Telling jokes about old ladies in the bathtubs full of diarrhea.
No, I'm not knocking it either, and if it helps people, I agree.
No, I have a very good friend who's a very senior person in the organization.
It
does a lot of good.
What I mean,
does
it's
a lot
good
of
for
good.
people. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Listen, I think we should wrap it up, fellas. I think we covered the gamut of
I did
everything
not
that
mean
ever
to make
happened.
this be a...
Oh, no, we're going to edit this together nicely and sell it to Entertainment Tonight. Jackie, the book comes out November 57th.
It should be on Not Really Entertainment Tonight.
Almost Entertainment Tonight.
Then you got to turn into Howard the next day to listen to them say, no, that's not true.
By the way, Michael Artsis and Rory have been here the whole time. Filming in 360. By the way, we've talked about doing video.
Yeah.
And it's so insane that our first video podcast,
It's so cutting edge.
is a 360
Yeah.
virtual
great.
reality. We couldn't even get that 4K working correctly.
Especially
it's working.
since the whole backside of 360 is the craft service
Yeah,
table.
it's good stuff.
You'll
man.
see Rory. We
I thank
could've
you
put
for
it in the
coming,
middle of the
Michael.
table,
Seriously,
but
thank you for
I
being
think
I
here.
want to put in
You're
one more
welcome.
thing.
Thank you. Turn the camera on.
We
by the way.
talked a lot
We'll
about
try.
the Stern Show and all this garbage. If you want to debate any of this or have any questions about this, I'm really serious. On Facebook, I have a bunch of Facebooks, but my main Facebook is Jackie Martling. If you go to Facebook and / Jackie Martling, if you have a question or you want to question anything we said, or if you want to talk about TJ's cock, or what Art
or the lobster bot
saw in the locker room, or if you want to question anything, please just go on Facebook, Jackie Martling, and ask me. And then if I get some crazy questions and answers the next time we do this, we can throw them around and debate them.
Awesome. I mean, just for the record, the consensus is that it's a very attractive cock. Not necessarily large, but with a very powerful ejaculate.
I like that nobody actually wrote that in. He's already answering it.
Yeah.
I'm just letting people know. I'm putting it out there.
The secret is to take a picture with an iPhone and then crop it.
Just give it to Mike and let them make it terrific.
Right.
Yeah, we'll 360 it. But the funny part is
positive.
that Jackie threw that out as an example and you answered it.
Of
Right.
course.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how the questions will be answered.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
perfect.
you. I
It makes
appreciate
perfect
it.
sense to end on dick pics.
TJ will explain how to
Ian, do we say everything to everybody? Ian,
edit the knob.
Besides the documentary, what are you doing? Some stuff?
IK Collective, my
IK Collective.
my day job. Yeah.
All right, brother.
IKcollective.com if you want to see some cool stuff.
And then we're going to let Rory end the episode. Rory, come in and say something.
Jokes
come on.
Daily.
Come on,
He's
Rory.
like, look at him. He's like, what?
Deer in headlights over here.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Rory,
how
you
we
gotta
do it.
have a question
Here on
at
Three
this
People
Jokes
Like
tweeted
This.
daily.
You ask, every question.
That's
pops
good,
up.
man.
It's
Well,
like,
that's
I'm
why
just-
he's
I'm
here.
just happy to be here. And to be called Numbnuts by Jackie Martling is
Isn't that the
amazing.
greatest
Thank
thing
you.
in the
Your new
world?
name.
We appreciate you coming. He's got
Numb
the
nuts,
anonymous
I want
shirt
you to
on.
meet late.
I just realized I fucked with the wrong person in Brooklyn. He's got the
Wow.
the thing on.
Nice.
All right, guys, go to 3peoplelikethis.com and suck your own cock.
At Jackie Martling on Twitter.
Thank you.
And
Hey, wait.
see you
One final thank you. Thank you, TJ
Hey,
and
TJ,
Bruno.
TJ
Thank you,
Stone.
TJ.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Stone.
No. Thank
TJ
you.
Bruno.
Stone.
Bruno.
Great
Thank
job.
you, thank you,
Great
thank
studio,
you.
by the way, guys.
Thank you.
Bruno and
Thank
TJ are
you.
geniuses. This podcast is zoomed to the top of the charts, and I don't know where the bodies are buried, but congratulations.
Jackie, there's only one
Thank
thing
you,
left
brother.
to say. See you next Tuesday.
Did you get that?
This has been Three People Like This Interviews with TJ Stone.
Said they're gonna break it down to liquors and another jibber listening high. Said that I'm a movie star. Said to drive me a big old car. Got a house one near one box. You see me, believe me, I'm about to make you look a troll. Yeah. Well, hold up. Said you need to get a hold of your pride. Said I've been the bottom of it, so you need to get a hold of yourself. Yeah. Well, you see me, believe me, I'm about to make you look a troll. Yeah. But the one thing they always talking about, yeah, the one thing they always know, they always turn to me. They always turn at 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 me. Ooh, you, when you do me like looking at. Yeah, but you see me, believe me, I'm about to make it look control you. With the one thing they always talking about, yeah, the one thing